Welcome to How I Got Here, hosted by seasoned educator Jeremy Proper. This is a podcast of conversations with his former students discussing their journey from middle school to where they are today. Guests highlight their successes and the life lessons learned along the way. And now let's welcome the host, Jeremy Proper.
Welcome to How I Got Here with Mr. Proper. I will be talking to former students who will tell the story of their personal journey from Mr. Proper's class, aka Club 128, to where they are now. Everyone has a different path to get to where they are now, and that path may just be the beginning to where they actually want to be. In these podcasts, I hope to tap into the journeys that my former students have taken. Also, for them to share their experiences with my current students, and for that matter, anyone else who is interested in seeing how hard work in and out of the classroom actually pays off. So let's welcome my guest, Nicholas Pita, aka Nico. Hey, Nico, how you doing?
Hey, I'm doing great. How about yourself?
I'm doing wonderful. Thank you so much for coming on. I really appreciate it. It's very kind of you to take the time to talk to your old teacher and tell me about your experiences.
Of course. Happy to be here.
Thank you. So what I'd like you to do is take a few minutes to briefly introduce yourself. Please include when you left the Don and where you went to high school, then college, post-college, and what you're currently doing now.
Sure. So my name is Nicholas Pita, or Nico, and I come from Boca Raton, Florida. I currently live in Dallas, Texas. I went to Don Estridge from 2008 to 2011. After that, I went to Boca High from 2011 to 2015. And after that, I went to the University of Florida, started my freshman year in 2015. I stayed in there until 2019. I actually got 2 degrees there. So I got my undergraduate degree in business administration, specializing in international studies. I finished that degree up in 2018. And then in 2019, I was dual enrolled. So I got a master's in international business. So I was able to get 4 years. I was able to get 2 degrees in 4 years, which just worked out really well financially for me, and it made a lot of sense. And I really liked the subjects too. So so after that, I graduated in 2019 in May. I spent 4 months looking for a job-ish, and I landed in what's that? Sorry?
No, I was laughing. I was like 4 months-ish. That's like nothing in the real world. Like
to
you, 4 months feels like a lifetime. To the rest of
Yeah.
us, you're like 4 months.
Yeah, I know. So, 4 months felt like a lot. A lot of my friends had a lot of offers coming out of college too. So I was looking around and I was like, everyone has a job, and I know.
When is it my turn?
I know, right? But I kept on applying. And the funny thing was, my parents moved to Seattle because my dad got a job in Seattle. And so I went with them to look for a job. And they're like, you'll get a job in Seattle. There's a bunch of jobs in Seattle. I'm like, yeah, I should get one. Didn't get a lot of success. And then I got a job as an anti-money laundering analyst with EY in Jacksonville, Florida. So of course I moved all of my stuff
all the way back
across the freaking continent.
For those listening who might not understand the complexity of what that means, could you explain anti-money laundering?
Yeah, of course. So I think the best way to describe anti-money laundering is by saying what money laundering is in the first place. And so money laundering is what criminals use to try to get their dirty money, right? Dirty meaning like it comes from sources of crime. So like selling drugs, selling weapons, selling people.
Illicit illegal acts, right?
Right. Any illegal acts. Like they typically have cash, or they have like some sort of money that they don't want people to know the source of that money. And so money launderers will take efforts to hide and disguise the true source of the money, so that by the time they actually spend that money that they got from the proceeds of crime, it looks legitimate. And it's money laundering is huge. It has to be at least billions of dollars laundered each year within the financial system. So think about billions. That's pretty big. And so as an anti-money laundering analyst, I work to try to identify, which acts of fraud and money laundering are going on. And, I would go and file a report to the government if there's actually suspicious activity going on. Me and my team would. And if nothing's going on, then I'll just simply write a report saying, no, all good, green light, keep on going. So, very interesting line of work. I actually do like it a lot. And it's interesting seeing like the client I worked at with EY was more focused on one specific part of anti-money laundering called KYC, or Know Your Customer. So I did a lot of like investigating into businesses and seeing what was going on, and risk ratings and risk evaluations of businesses of our client.
So this basically takes different paths depending on the situation. So it's never like the same routine. So that's what must make it interesting, because one client is doing this, another client is doing that, and you have to do all these different investigatory processes. So therefore, you're really doing something new every time. That must make it very interesting.
Right, exactly. And, like cases can be similar too, but there's typically a lot of nuance in each case I do. So, a lot of them are like similar but different. Just like as the wise James Franco once said in the interview, same but different. So
exactly. Yes. Yes, exactly.
Yeah. And so now RobinHood is a little different. Instead of investigating into businesses, RobinHood is all about having a personal investment account. It's now investigating people. So it's interesting seeing that switch from entity to individuals, and I like it.
Yes.
So
wow.
I had that job with EY for a year. I started in September 2019, and then in September 2020, I took a leap of faith, and September 2020 was probably like the first act of, if you will, of COVID and the coronavirus pandemic. So I left EY in the middle of the pandemic with no sign of it getting better.
Wow.
And because I needed a leap of faith. I realized I needed a change of companies, and applied for RobinHood. Cold applied. It didn't have any referrals or anyone. The company was probably about 2,000 people big at that point, so not a big company.
No, not at that time.
Compared to EY, it has hundreds of thousands of employees.
Right, it's a huge corporation that's been around for like almost 100 years.
Yeah. So leap of faith. I was unemployed for 6 weeks before I got the offer at RobinHood, which is insane.
Yeah, sure.
And yeah, I love it so far at RobinHood. They've been great to me, and a leap of faith kind of paid off. And I just hit my 1 year at RobinHood 3 days ago. As of
congratulations,
1st.
That's amazing. Congratulations.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yes. So
time flies, doesn't it? Huh?
Yeah, it really flies. But
you went from 6 weeks of what am I going to do? Am I going to get a job? To now it's been a year. That's incredible.
Yes, it's been a year, and I moved from Florida to Texas. So my first time, and I'm in Texas. I have a lease. I'm in Dallas, Texas, for at least until November. So and maybe even longer, depending on if I want to stay here, if I want to go somewhere else. I mean,
wow,
I live in another city. So yeah. So I'm 24 now, so I feel like a child still. But I realize that the listeners are half my age, and they're even.
Well, no, they're only about 10 years younger, 11 years younger, 13, 14.
Yeah, 13, 14. So, yeah, I mean, so I still feel like
that is half your age. I can't do math, so you're right, they are. Oh, my God. Well, first off, thank you so much for coming on and telling my students about your life experiences, because what you've already told is quite interesting. I mean, you have a really interesting job, which I'm sure most people are like, that's a job? You could do that? And that's what's so cool about this, is that they get to hear things from people who are doing something that they may have never even thought about doing. So now that you've explained your educational life experience, is there a moment that you realized that you got inspired for learning? Was there a moment where you're like, I just want to learn this? Like, this is really cool, or where you realized this is the direction I wanted to go? And it could be middle, high school, college, graduate school. It could be even today, maybe something that's not even related to what you do.
Yeah. Is there one specific moment? No, I'd have to say there are a bunch of moments, and I could honestly probably go down the list of like middle school to college to today. What is inspired me for learning, and middle school. I think what inspired me for learning is couple of classes. So Miss Adamo's English class.
She's
Back
so
when I took it.
popular on this podcast. It's ridiculous. Everyone loves Miss Adamo.
Miss Adamo, I know, right? We'd probably imagine with the Miss Adamo podcast at this point.
Yeah, right.
But I remember when I went to her class, she had just got married and she was pregnant with her first kid. And like first semester, she was like, had a boyfriend or whatever. Second semester, I have a husband and I am pregnant. And I was like, whoa, like
Life
very
happens
radical
fast,
change.
man.
Yeah.
Like Ferris Bueller, you might miss it. Well, here, on a side note,
Yeah.
he goes to Don Estridge now.
Oh my God.
I knew I'd blow your mind with that one.
It's true though, right? Because half my age, that means,
there you go.
Yeah. So that's nuts. Do you think it's weird? Can you have his mom as a teacher?
No, that's against the law. You can't do that. Like Mr. Bender's daughter goes to the school, and actually Mrs. Bender works there now too, and neither of them can have the daughter. So no, you can't do it.
That makes sense. I can see a conflict of interest there.
Just a little bit, yeah. How come your kid's always getting an A and doesn't do anything? That's not fair.
Yeah, no, that's smart. Yeah.
So with that note of inspired for learning, was there that teacher? Was there a specific teacher that just like turned it on for you? And what was it about them, or what was it that they did that Nico went, oh yeah, okay, I can do that?
Yeah, and again, like I have to say multiple teachers because it'd be unfair to say like just one. Sorry, but Miss Adano's class was. Oh, what's that? Sorry, can I do that?
No, I was going to say it usually is. It's never just one. It's like what is that? What is it? Is it Ruffles? You can't just eat one.
Yeah, exactly. They have ridges.
You got it.
So Adamo was great because I really was so interested in Greek mythology. And you could tell she was so excited about it.
She loves Greek mythology. And if you like it, it's like the instant connection. You got it.
Exactly. And I remember learning about, Zeus being having high libido, shall we say, and and Mother Gaia and Aphrodite being born through let's say interesting circumstances. I'm not sure if I can say that on
probably
the
not.
podcast or middle schoolers.
Good choice. Good choice.
But it's these crazy stories that are so interesting, and I think that was kind of the first time I was like, wow, like I actually kind of like this, and I think going on to 7th grade or 8th grade, I don't remember much of 7th grade, but 8th grade was your class, and
thank you,
Mr. Lee.
I'll pay you the $20 later. Thank you so much.
Great. I'll take
I have your Venmo.
Yeah, good.
Yes, Mr. Lee, what a great science teacher. These kids wouldn't know who he was because he doesn't work at the school anymore, but what an amazing man with unbelievable stories. Traveled around the world. What was it, like 4 times the guy's been around the world?
Yeah.
It's insane.
Yeah, he told me. And the thing was with both you and Mr. Lee was the passion behind what was going on and the stories and the ability to connect with people. I remember Mr. Lee's class. I just, it was after class, and he was my last class of the day. So it was either, I can talk to him or I can go home, and I just want to talk to him because we talked about cars, and I was like kind of into cars at that point. Playing like Forza Horizon, like
yep.
And I was like, man, the cars just look so different now. He's like, yes, and they're making materials that are like lighter and stronger and more efficient, and and he's just talking like all about it. I can see like a light in his eyes, and it actually gets me excited too. So I'm like, yeah, that's awesome. Like when I get to be a grown up, it's going to be 100 miles a gallon per car, which is not true. And but
we have electric cars now, so they do better.
Yes. So but it was so cool seeing that. And then I remember for your class, Mr. Proper, at one point you're like, why was Wyoming the first state to allow women to vote? And I remember raising my hand, and I said like, because they wanted to attract women over into their state because they were still expanding westward in the country. And then you're like, why can't I think like you? Like I did not think like you when I was your age. Like I wish I could have done that. And I was like, whoa, like and that kind of had a big effect on me.
Really?
And
Me putting
yeah,
myself out there and being honest with you and saying that, wow, that's a
yeah,
wonderful compliment. Thank you so,
yeah.
and the fact that you still remember that all
Uh,
this time later, that's incredible.
yeah, yeah, double my life later.
Back to
So,
that pesky math again.
math. I hate math as a working in RobinHood as a financial company. And
Not a fan
prior
either.
prior at EY in an accounting company. So
That's funny.
yeah, so
Was there someone in high
yeah,
school that did the same thing for you?
and it's funny because high school actually, I think high school is when I tried to take tennis more seriously. I've been playing tennis since I was around 12, so I think I kind of started in middle school,
Yes,
and
I remember.
and yeah, and high school was when I really got into watching Roger Federer play
Ugh,
and
nobody better.
Andy Murray too. Loved
Yes,
Andy
Andy
Murray's
Murray. Oh, Andy
backhand.
Murray. Yes, he's another great one.
Hmm.
Doesn't get
Yeah,
enough recognition.
yes, but I just remember like thinking I was like, my serve freaking sucks, and Roger just hit 50 aces against Andy Murray in Wimbledon. Like,
Right, 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 right,
how
right.
does
How
he
did the
do
number one
that?
player in the world do that to the number two player in the world? Like, that's
I
impossible.
I know, and I'm just like, I need to learn. And so I remember looking up on YouTube and just looking up how Roger serves and how Andy Roddick serves and finding these materials just on YouTube for free. Like this is how Roddick gets 140 miles an hour off of his serve, which is insane if you don't know tennis. Like a
Yeah, that's super fast.
good serve is like 120, like
Right.
a good speed for a
Solid.
first serve.
Right, right, right. And
Right.
let's give note, Andy Roddick, former Boca Raton boy,
Yes, he had a house
right down the
here.
street from me, actually, strangely
Yeah.
enough.
Yeah. I ball boy for Andy Roddick one time. I was on the court with him.
Really? Oh, that's
Yeah.
incredible. My wife
Yeah.
met him when we lived in Miami. She
Hmm.
used to, we always would go to it's the Miami Open now. It used to be called the NASDAQ,
Yeah.
and it was not too far away from where we lived. So we would get the all day pass. And
Hmm.
one year they had like a meet the players, and she has pictures with Andy Roddick, and she got to meet him one time, and she was like, "Oh my God, he was so nice." I'm like, "Wow, that's amazing
Yeah.
that's someone that you would bring up." I find that to be interesting.
Yeah. Yeah. Roddick. I don't know if you remember who Monica Puig is, but she won the gold medal for Puerto Rico in the 2016 Olympics, I think, in Rio.
The name
And
sounds familiar. It's ringing a bell.
I have a picture with her. I was a ball boy
Nice.
also for the Miami Open. I think it was called the Sony Open at that point.
Yes, yes,
Yeah,
that's
there's
right. It changed from Sony. I forgot about that.
yeah, it went from Nasdaq to Sony Ericsson to Sony to like the Lipton at some
To
point.
the
And
Lipton, right, and
yeah,
then eventually the Miami. Yeah,
yeah,
because nobody else wanted to sponsor it, I guess.
yeah, I guess. But it's cool. She took a picture with a bunch of the ball boys and the ball
Super
girls,
nice.
and
That's
I
so
was there,
nice.
and she was really nice. And so I'm like, I have a picture with a gold medalist. They're like, what? And then they
Nice.
don't believe me, and I'm like, here's a picture.
Here's the
Um,
picture.
yeah. So so tennis was huge, as you can tell. Like I love tennis, and I still play it to this day, and I'm still trying to get better. But high school for me was more so just like seeing that, like like I loved that passion that other teachers had, but then I kind of really discovered like that I had a passion for tennis and learning, and I had a light bulb kind of turn on in a sense, where it's like, yes, like this is for me, and like to this day, like my serve is probably one of my better shots because I studied so much and I learned so much. And like I had a guy come in and clock my serve at one point, and like I think I hit 114,
Nice.
and I'm 5'8" and 150 pounds. So
Yeah, that's
guy,
pretty impressive for
guy
a gentleman of your size. Being
yeah,
6'3", 200 pounds, I use the whale on it a little harder myself, but
yeah,
that's only because I have a greater reach than you do. So
yeah,
114 is pretty good.
yeah, and a better angle too because you're hitting down. I got to hit a little more out, but I
Exactly,
mean,
exactly.
yeah, and that's when I discovered kind of like like I loved. That's when I feel like I realized like I loved learning because I can get a little better at something, and then I can show it off and feel a little, have a little pride in my chest. I'm like, yes, like I did that and I worked
I
at it and
can
I
do
got
that.
it.
What's
Yeah,
amazing for your generation is that you brought it up. You have YouTube. I didn't have that as a kid growing up. So if I wanted to do something, I would have to watch, Bjorn Borg, or I would have to watch,
right.
Pat Cash, or I'd have to watch John McEnroe, my favorite, because him and I have about the same angry streak. I do something silly and I would just get as angry as he would. I'm like, well, if it's good enough for him, and my dad would be like, yeah, he's the number one player in the world and you're not. So don't do that. So but I would only be able to watch it on TV. You can just sit there and watch the same thing over and over and over again on YouTube and learn from that. And that's amazing that you can make the connection of the learning through tennis and saying, I want to get better, and this is how I'm going to do it. That's amazing.
Right. So, and that takes a little bit of discipline. And, like I definitely did not get as much sleep as I should have. I stayed up at night watching some
Way
Federer
too
clips
late
and,
watching that.
watching, not any movies, but watching Roger Federer beat the crud out of people.
But this was what you were interested at the time. Like if you were playing
Of course.
baseball, you would have watched a baseball player. If you were playing soccer, you would have watched a soccer player.
Mhm.
It's just what it was that you were interested in that time. And that was the choice you went, where maybe other kids were into basketball and you're like, no, I'm into tennis. And again, I always felt that was something that you and I had in common because I love playing tennis too. And I played my whole life. And here is a kid who's up and coming and is enjoying playing tennis and probably feels like, oh, here's somebody I can talk to about this. And he actually knows the game and the people I'm talking about.
Exactly. Yeah. And then the funny thing too is like I saw like the more I studied and practiced and figured out, and I was in an academy of tennis of people who were much better than me. But because I emphasized so much focus on my serve and learning my serve, I saw my serve go from one of the worst to one of the best. And to where one of my coaches who like ran the whole academy was like, "That's a bomb, mate," because he was Australian.
Yeah.
I was like, to have an Aussie who was at one point the number one junior in the world going and say that's a bomb. I was like, and I was 15, 16. It's like, whoa. So that, so I feel like that really felt good. And really like, I really felt that first kind of inspiration for learning again. And it's like discovering and rediscovering, right? And so like when I went to college, I didn't play tennis or anything because I knew that I wanted to get an education and I wasn't going to make money through playing a game, sadly.
Unfortunately, most of us can't do that, so don't feel so bad.
I would love to have the Patrick Mahomes $500 million contract, but
anyone would. That's a lot of
go,
pressure, though. I don't know if I want to deal with that kind of pressure. But
I mean, contracts locked in, pressure or not, I'm getting paid $500 million.
Yeah, that's true. You're getting paid no matter what. Right? Yeah, that's true. It's I'm getting paid whether I throw one touchdown or 100. It doesn't matter.
Right. So yeah, I mean, but yeah, I knew that education was the way for me. And the funny thing was, and I think it's kind of lead into a later question, was when I first got into UF and my freshman year, they're like, "What do you want to do?" All of my friends were engineers. My best friend was an engineer. All the friends I hung out with in high school were engineers, and they wanted to do engineering. My roommate was an engineer, and I
a lot of pressure there.
Yeah, and I was just like,
I don't like math. I can't do this.
I took Chem 1, and that was the first class I ever failed, was taking Chem 1.
Really?
I failed it. I got like a 50% on the class.
And oh my gosh!
I'm someone who got A's and B's, and a C was never even in the question. So
and you had told me in the pre-interview. And how many AP classes did you take? Let's go down that road.
I took
a hair under 20.
I think a hair under 20 worth of AP classes. Yeah.
And yet you failed this class. So
I failed chemistry. Yeah.
Wow.
And
not everything works out for everyone, but I appreciate you saying that, because not everybody wants to talk about their failures. Everyone wants to talk about, I'm so great, I did this. That's appreciate that.
I disagree. I think that like people should talk about their failures, because if you just are gonna say I failed and you just kind of push it in the back of your mind and never talk about it, I mean, how will you learn or grow from it? I mean, and if you're ashamed from it, I mean, there's a lot that can go wrong there, like from a mental and emotional mind state. I think talking about failures is one of the best things you can do, and what the person that who could help you most about that failure. So for me, it was just kind of talking to myself. I was the one I had to deal with my failure, right? And
because you did it. It was your failure.
It was me, and it was all me. And I tried very hard. And I just remember I was between business and engineering, because all my friends are engineers, but I never liked engineering that much. And then this failure confirmed I am not.
This isn't for me.
Yeah, and I can't do 7 more semesters of this.
No.
So.
This was bad enough, and it was 1.
It was 1, and everyone else did great, and I did not do so hot. But so I had to pivot very hard into business. I was like, okay, I guess I'm going to do business. I really don't know if I like it or not, but I'm going to do it.
Gonna find out.
Yeah, and then again, this whole thing, like what inspired me for learning business was my sophomore year. I took a class called International Business, and the teacher there, she's just a very well-spoken woman, and she knew so much knowledge about like the Fed, like our central bank in the
Right.
US, and international like an international business, like Target. Everyone knows Target. They're so successful in the United States, and then they went to Canada and they failed so hard. They couldn't.
Epic fail.
It
Yeah,
was
it
it was
just didn't take
epic.
off. They weren't
Yeah,
interested.
and
Right. I remember reading about that, and I'm like, how does Target fail? That's impossible.
Canadians drive into the United States to go to Target.
Right.
So, you're like, okay, like what
Let's
happened
open one up
here?
there. Right. Let's
Yeah,
bring it to them. Nope, didn't work
yeah.
out so well, did it?
I just felt my brain kind of activate in a way because I was like, yes, like this makes sense. And then talking about um, currency and currency values and strong dollars and weak dollars, and why a strong dollar isn't always a good thing, even though it sounds like a good thing. We have a strong dollar and
Right, right.
gold reserves, and like
It
and
was all coming
China.
together for you. It
Yeah,
really just
and
all of a sudden started to make sense.
all of the lights in my brain felt activated, and I was like, this is so interesting. And that's when I knew I made the right choice, because I could have commiserated with a bunch of other engineers,
Right.
or I could
Well, Nico had to
or
go out on his own
yeah.
path and find what he needed to do rather than kind of follow the herd, which was what they wanted to do. And that's a difficult thing, I think, as a young person, to make
Yeah,
your own choices and go away from the pack, especially when, like you said, every one of your friends
right.
was going to engineering school and is currently engineers. And you're like, yeah, that's just not for me. And that's
Yeah,
difficult. I keep
yeah.
reading this thing on the paper that I wrote down, and you really were talking about this earlier in the pre-interview, the fixed mindset and the growth mindset. And I thought you had some really good insight on that. If you could take a moment and reiterate what you were talking about, I think that would be really helpful.
Sure. So the when we think about ourselves and certain like actions that we're doing, like school, playing tennis, I don't know, anything else, but we kind of fall into one of two mindsets, and that's kind of the fixed mindset or the growth mindset. And I feel like the growth mindset is just a very healthy way to kind of go about learning and becoming a better individual and a stronger person. And the fixed mindset is kind of a more natural mindset to fall into. And the difference is a fixed mindset, if you think about it in terms of sports, fixed mindset means you have a certain amount of talent, and you are predetermined to have this much talent, and it's very results oriented. So if you fail, you don't have talent and you're no good. You succeed and you win, then you have talent and you are good. And that's just a sports analogy. But what about school? If you get A's, you're a smart kid. If you get D's and F's, you're a dumb kid. And if you get C's, you're kind of average. I mean, and it's the fixed mindset can be so destructive in a sense, because um, if I got a C on a class, that does not mean I'm an average person. Getting a C in a class means I only had an average understanding of that subject for the material that I learned. It doesn't
Exactly.
mean I'm an average person
No,
overall,
no,
right?
no.
But
That's
it's
one aspect of your life that shouldn't be basically focused on this is who I am because I did this.
right. And it's so easy to say, like in middle school, for me, it was like, the thing I kind of latched onto was tennis. And I was like, if I can win at tennis, I'm a good person. Like I'm a better person, like I'm a stronger person if I
I'm
can just
good
win
at
at tennis.
something and I'm better than others at this something.
Yeah, and therefore I have confidence, which is not a great mindset to follow, because it's a sport. You win and you lose, and when I lost is devastating, and
What
it
was that?
really
What was
hurt.
that moment that probably shifted you from a fixed mindset to a growth mindset? How were you able to, as a young boy or a young man, be able to say, "I don't
Mhm.
want to be fixed anymore. I want to grow. I want to make it a difference, and I want to change"? Was there something that stood out that maybe you remember?
Yeah, and the funny thing is the fixed mindset and growth mindset, like they can exist at the same time, but when you're focusing on different things. So I think for a long time, I had a fixed mindset in tennis, and for a longer time, I had a growth mindset in academics,
Hmm.
which I think is interesting
Yeah.
because, in academics, I was around really smart people. I mean, like my best friend, Ryan Rice, I don't think he ever got a B. And,
Probably not.
his, yeah.
I remember Ryan very well. Probably not.
Yeah. He's super intelligent and
a hard worker too. It was a combination. It wasn't just like he was a genius and sat on his behind and didn't do anything, but he was very smart and very motivated at the same time.
Yeah, and then imagine 5 or 6 Ryans, guys and girls, different backgrounds, all getting A's, and I'm the one who gets A's and B's.
Right. Ooh, poor baby. He got a B. He's
know.
inferior.
I know, right? Like I never thought that. I was like, I got good grades, So it was weird like that. Like I had a growth mindset in academics, so I was like, no, I know I can do this, and I know maybe I can't get it as fast as they can, but I know I'll get it at some point.
Right.
And for tennis, it wasn't that. And I think it actually happened when I switched from fixed to growth. It happened in college, so it took a long time to get out of that fixed mindset for me, for tennis at least, right? Because in college I was in club tennis, and I feel like a lot of people kind of reinforce that fixed mindset, where you win, you go up, you lose, you go down, and so that was kind of how it worked. So it kind of was a system of kind of like a fixed mindset stuff, and I was just like, what, I don't care that I'm not on the A team or the B team or the C team. I'm on the D team, but what I do, I make friends in tennis. I have fun. I play people who are better than me. I play people who are worse than me, and I have fun playing the sport. And then I feel like it took this kind of capitulation of frustration to be like, why am I even?
Sounds like it.
Right? Why am I even thinking this way? I don't even have fun with tennis when I'm worried about the results. And I used to love this sport, and I don't anymore. And that kind of pushed me away from, that environment. So I actually left club tennis, and it put me into a healthier path because I found something else where I was like, I just want to grow. And I found my business fraternity. So I found AK Psi, and I was able to kind of grow there. And
you found a bunch of people just like yourself, so you fit right in, and then you were like, wait a second, this is it right here.
Yeah, and we all wanted to grow, and now I'm still playing tennis, and I must have hated tennis sophomore year of college because it was so stressful. And now I'm not only playing the best tennis in my life, I'm learning the most about tennis in my life, and I'm having the most amount of fun with it. So
what a shocker, huh? You change your mindset, and everything else changes with it.
Yeah, and I feel like I'm growing a lot faster than I was as a player back then. And, in terms of just learning in general, I mean, I feel, not to toot my own horn or anything, but I do feel like I learned a lot, and I know a lot more than I would say your average 24-year-old knows. And I'm just happy and confident.
That's awesome.
So,
and that actually leads me to my next question. It says, if you could turn back time and tell your 8th grade self some advice, what would you tell them? So of this knowledge that you have gained over this time, what could you go back and tell 8th grade Nico, don't sweat the small stuff? What would it be that you would say to yourself to kind of go, okay, it'll get better?
Yeah. Yeah. Don't sweat the small stuff. That's definitely one thing I would tell him. I think in middle school, there's a lot of peer pressure, and a lot of people think that they care what other people think about you. And just want to say, nobody cares as much as you think they care, as much as you think they care.
Exactly.
Nobody cares. I've never talked to someone and be like, middle school was just the most important thing ever when Johnny told me that my jeans looked ugly.
Right. My life went downhill from there, and it never recovered. I spiraled out of control, and I live under a rock in my parents' basement, and I never did anything with my life. Exactly.
Yeah.
But the thing is, Nico, when you're living it, it is. That's the problem.
Exactly. And it's hard. It's hard to see. Yeah.
Without a doubt. When you're living it, it's the now. And especially when you're only 12, 13 years old. You don't know any better. You're just like, this is all I know. My 12, 13, 14 rotations around the sun. What do I know? What does this old man know that's trying to teach me something? I this, I that. You don't know anything. You haven't been on this planet long enough. But that's why, again, I wanted to do this, because you realize that now. There are very few kids that realize it in 8th grade. Most of them do not, but some of them do, but most of them don't. And then when they get older, fingers crossed that they do get it. So that's awesome. That's some really good advice.
Yeah. So don't stress the small stuff. And, and I think the other advice I'd want to tell my 8th grade self, and I think this is super important, and I still think it's this day, is like, people may not remember exactly what you did or what you said to them in middle school, but people will remember exactly how you made them feel. And
how you treated them. Exactly.
Yeah. And I remember the people who were kind to me, and I remember the people who were mean to me. And I, like we said many times, am double the age of the typical middle schooler. So
right.
that is, imagine 12 years passing and you still remember how someone treated you. And,
Nico, I have to interrupt. Okay, it's been more than a minute since I was in middle school, and I still remember the mean things that kids said to me when I was in middle school. And I tell that to the kids all the time. But also, like going along with what you say, I try to joke around and have a good time in class. But of course, you're going to find somebody on a bad day, and you're going to want to you're going to say something to them, and they're going to take it the wrong way. So you're going to want to apologize and make them know. And that's the one thing I try to get kids to understand is that I'm just here to have fun. It wasn't my job that I went to college and graduate school and I wanted to learn how to be mean to children. No, I make jokes and sometimes they go over well and sometimes they don't. But when they don't, I'm a big enough person, not just because I'm 6'3", but I'm a big enough person to apologize to a 13-year-old and say, look, I'm really sorry. I didn't mean to hurt your feelings. I'm sorry you took it that way, but that's not what I meant. But the problem is there are people out there that do it on purpose. The difference is disseminating the difference between the people that do it on purpose just to be mean and the people who are not, that it was just maybe I took it the wrong way and that's not what they meant. By me apologizing, they understand that. So I'm sure that the kids get it, and that is a comfort knowing, oh, well, this guy did make me feel like garbage, but he told me he didn't mean it, so I'm going to try to give him the benefit of the doubt and believe it because he's never done it before, and hopefully he won't do it again, and let's move on from that. So
exactly. Yeah. Yeah. You establish that boundary and then go from there. And I can confirm, Mr. Proper did not go down that course. I took a couple of courses about being mean to children in college, and Mr. Proper was not on the legacy list there. So
thank you so much.
Yeah, I can confirm that.
And there's another $20 I owe you. Okay. Venmo is going to be blowing up today.
Oh yeah.
So what was your most challenging educational experience, and how did you overcome that challenge? And if you can, how did it make you be a better student or a better person? It sounds like a lot of it's tennis related, but that's fine too, even if it is.
Yeah. Challenging educational experience. I mean, one of them was failing chemistry, like I kind of talked about.
Oh, that's huge. Yeah.
Yeah. I think learning what I wanted and what I didn't want and accepting failure and not letting it define me was good.
That's a really important point. Not letting it define you. That is amazing. I love that you said that because I think a lot of kids will define themselves going back to what you said about failing a class or getting a D, or when all of their friends are AB students and you're mired in D because it's just not your thing. And then you just internalize, well, I'm just a failure and I'm just terrible.
Mm-hmm.
That's awesome. That's a really good point. Thank you for saying that.
Yeah, of course. Right. Yeah. I failed chemistry and now I work at I worked for 2 big companies and I'm very comfortable and happy with my life. So
is RobinHood currently a Fortune 500 company, would you say, or they're not quite there yet?
I'm not sure. I'm not sure how those metrics are tracked, but
you're getting there.
We're definitely an influential company. I think we're very culturally relevant. And
without a doubt. I mean, all the kids that are listening know what RobinHood is. I even had kids last year who had RobinHood accounts and they were trading in my class. It's like it's become a cultural phenomenon even amongst kids. So everyone knows what it is. So you working there is like, wow, that's amazing. Yeah, here's the kid that failed chemistry, but yet he's working for RobinHood. So it all worked out in the end. Exactly. And that's it, that you're back to the growth mindset. You did not let failing chemistry ruin your whole life going, oh man, I'm a failure because I failed this. No, it's just not your thing and you didn't understand it. Don't get me wrong. It feels like crap to fail anything, whether it's school, whether it's friendship, whether it's, at tennis, at sports, at life, in a relationship. No one likes to fail. But if you learn something from it, I always tell that to the kids. Look, you learn more from your failures than you do from your successes. The problem is most people don't want to face the failures. They just want to embrace the successes. And I'm like, that's not the way life works. You're never going to get any better or learn anything if you don't do anything about it. So that is amazing. That is really good.
Yeah.
So,
so
go ahead. Sorry.
Yeah. So challenging experiences. Chemistry was one of them. I got to say, high school, for me, I took 9 AP classes in 1 year,
That's insane. Sorry.
which, yeah, it's
Sorry.
insane.
That's insane.
It is insane. I took
Looney Tunes.
Looney Tunes. So I
Hold
had
on.
five.
I got to have some funny sound here for that one.
Yeah.
Let's see. There's a giggle. Oh, here you go. Here's even better. For your 9 AP class. You can hear that?
Yeah.
Okay, just wanted to make sure.
Yeah, 9 AP classes in a year. And so how it was broken up was I had 5 classes that had 1 exam. And then I had my first period class. I took microeconomics the first semester, macro the second. So 5 plus 2, 7. And then my last class, I took US government in the first semester and comparative government in the second semester.
Oh,
So plus 2, 7 plus 2 is 9.
Ugh.
So that was challenging.
My brain's hurting just thinking about this.
So, yeah, and I was an AB student, and I think, I mean, it was challenging because obviously there's so much to do and so much to learn. And I think I overcame it because, A, I had excellent teachers, and B, just because I just worked hard at it. And, like, honestly, I don't remember getting a lot of sleep. I remember working homework until midnight or whatever.
So as this common theme comes up in these podcasts, I'm going to have to throw out the phrase time management.
Yes, that is a huge phrase. And I liked playing Halo 3 too much to have a good time management.
Problematic.
Problematic. Yeah, I only played on the weekends though. So
well, that's positive. So you were able to kind of balance.
Exactly. So I balanced out, like weekend was kind of my fun time, and then weekdays were like my school tennis and then get my homework done. So it was just really being diligent. And then, taking good notes or having friends help me out on like things I don't quite understand. And I don't know, like Quizlet or other resources, right? And Crash Course on YouTube is an amazing channel.
Crash Course is great. Can you just double back to what you said about having friends helping you? I think that's a new one. I haven't heard anyone really discuss that. Could you please take a minute and talk about that? I think that's interesting.
Yeah, sure. So it's like, for example, like so comparative government and US government were probably my weakest ones. I actually did not pass the US government AP class, but I passed all the 8 other ones. So
I won't tell Miss Day. We won't tell Miss Day. She'll be very upset.
She's still there?
Can you believe it? Yes, she is.
No, I had Miss Strunk.
Oh, okay.
I'm not sure.
Not there anymore. Nope.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So yeah, Miss Day didn't do anything wrong. She's doing great. I'm sure she is. But yeah. So 8 out of 9 exams, and just some people knew things better than I did, right? So like some people knew what the question was asking on an essay question, for example, and I just didn't get the wording or whatever, and then they would help me be like, oh yeah, what this is saying is they want to do this, so you can talk about this and this, and then I was able to like learn better through that. Like for example, my sophomore year, we took AP Bio with Mr. Benskin, who fantastic teacher, and to complete tangent, Mr. Benskin is a high school teacher, and he's like one of the smartest individuals I know. And at some point, a car was burning on the side of the road. He stopped his car, got out of his car, opened the door, and pulled the guy out of the burning car.
Wow.
And saved his life. And then he walked into school the next day, and he was like, yeah, I did that. Like, and then was like, why did you do that? And he's like, because I would hope someone else would pull me out of a burning car.
Right. Because if that's me, one of you better do that. Because I just did it to a stranger. One of you better do that. Right. Oh my God, that is an amazing, amazing human being. A wonderful story. Oh my God.
Like someone had to ask me about it. They're like, you did that? He's like, yeah. He wasn't just like, look at me, I'm a hero. He's like, wait, that happened? He's like, yeah, that happened.
Right. It's like just total modesty. Like, yeah, it happened. No worries. It's like, I'd do that tomorrow again if it happened. Oh my God, that's insane.
Yeah. I sat next to a really smart guy named Rusty Whitehead, and
Rusty.
and we just messed with each other all the time. Like I called him Wusty Righthead, and he called me Pico Nita, and he just knew things better than I did, like certain things. Like he knew meiosis versus mitosis better than I did.
Oh,
So
no,
I was able
you're
to do
killing
all
me.
that,
That's my downfall. That was my downfall.
Right.
Biology. Oh my God. Like, oh my God. That was my meiosis, mitosis, and cell division. It's all the same crap. It's just different words. Oh, I couldn't get it to stick in my head. Oh, Rusty. At least you had your own Rusty to help you. I didn't have one of those.
Mhm.
Man, thank you, Rusty.
Yeah. So, and then vice versa. Sometimes I knew things better than other people, or Spanish class, like people were fluent, some people were less fluent. So,
Right.
I help
But
the
you're
people who were less
utilizing the
fluent.
tools that you have to help it go better for you. And you knew
Right.
that. You're like, okay, I can be humbled. Even though I'm an AB student, I can still be humbled and say, I just don't know this, and let me ask for help. And some of
Right.
us, me included, have a really hard time asking for help because we're just such hard-headed people that I can do everything myself. I don't need help. We all need help. You just have to learn how to ask for it. And normally,
Right.
not always,
Mhm.
but normally when you ask for help, most people recognize, okay,
Mhm.
I'm going to help. If they're going to ask, most people will help, which is
Right.
tremendous. Well, that's
Yeah.
awesome that you
Mhm.
recognize that, because a lot of people don't. A lot of people are just going to I'm going to muddle through this. I'm a crappy student. It's
Mhm.
just going to be that way, rather than, hey, my friend just happens to be amazing at this. Maybe I should ask them.
Exactly. Yeah. And, sometimes a person can explain a concept or a series of events better to you than another person can. You know, not to knock the teacher or anything, but sometimes
No.
teachers say something that doesn't resonate, and then the student gets it, says it in a different way, and that resonates with someone else. And so that was
I
something
can even tell you that I've literally had kids use the exact same words that I said 2 seconds ago, and the other kid goes, "Oh yeah, okay, I get it." And everyone is like, "Hey, Mr. Proper just literally said those exact same words. Why does it resonate through the kid voice, but the adult voice is wah 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 wah?" And I'm
Yeah.
like, what did you? I said the same words. But yeah, sometimes, like they say, the medium is the message, or how the message is delivered, or from whom it is delivered
Mhm.
makes the difference. I don't know, but at this point, I don't care how you get it, as long as you get it. And I constantly say, all right, I'm hearing a lot of crickets in the room. Can someone who does understand it explain it to those that don't, so we can move on? Because
Yeah.
I'll sit there and try to re-explain and come up with a different analogy another way, and it's still like, hello, McFly, can you hear me? And then finally, some kid it just repeats what I said, and everyone goes, "Oh!" And I'm smacking my head against the wall.
And you're like, this kid should get paid like a quarter of my salary or
I
something.
swear, like they just totally. This is my code talker, my whisperer here, my sign
Right.
language interpreter, whatever it may be. That's incredible. Well, you kind
Right.
of alluded to my next question a little bit earlier with your Halo 3. So with these 2,000 AP classes that you took,
Right.
at all of your different levels, like when was there some me time? When was there some Nico like downtime? Like I know it was your tennis and your video games, but like what was a real solid like, okay, I'm gonna do this and everything else can just wait.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, I think for me, the key aspect of this question is detaching. And
Yes.
detaching means you don't think about school slash work whatsoever, and
Get in the
um,
zone with something else.
exactly. And like you're wholly in the moment that you're in the present, and you're not worried about the assignment coming out, or the test coming up, or a case you need to work if you're
Your
if
yearly
you're
review or whatever's coming up. You're
right.
just like, I'm gonna
Exactly.
put that aside and I'm gonna go out. Yeah, for me
Right.
lately, it's been bike riding. Like I
Yeah.
get on my bike and I'll go for this really awesome 18-mile ride, and I love to look at all the foliage and the people and whatever's
Mhm.
going on. And we're lucky we live in South Florida, so you get passed by like Ferraris and all kinds of cool cars and such.
Right.
And then you
Mhm.
just like forgetting about it. That's awesome. Yeah, that's
Yeah.
a great way to do it.
So the me time for me was tennis. That was kind of my
Your
continual
go-to.
go-to. Was like I always had tennis 3 times a week, and it was regular, so I had that time scheduled.
Oh, so you always
And
knew tennis a Monday, Wednesday, Friday.
exactly, and I knew I could always go and de-stress, because it's very de-stressing when you're just hitting the crap out of a ball,
Oh
and it's
yeah,
just
there's
like
nothing better than
ah,
wailing on a ball. I don't care if it's in or out, just the mere
yeah,
fact that you can just hit it as hard as you want. That's
right,
actually for me, now that I'm getting a little bit older in age, it's golf. Golf has become that sport because you can whack that little ball all over the course and it does the same thing.
Right. So that was good. That was important for me. And then Ryan, who I've alluded to a couple of times, my best friend, every Friday we would hang out, and that was always something to look forward to. So, it's like I get to hang out with my friend over the weekend, and we'd hang out Friday,
You see,
parents
now
pick
I
us
have to
up.
interview Ryan and
Yeah.
see if he tells so many nice stories about you.
Right. Yeah.
He'll be like, Billy Bob was my best friend. Nico's
be
like,
like,
hey, wait a minute.
What about me?
Exactly. Well, that's
Yeah.
awesome that you were
Yeah.
able to find that. So you had a nice balance between your rigorous academic career and your free time and your athletics and even your video games. And you were able to do that.
Play video games on the weekends. Yeah.
Exactly. And that's what's important, is not having it attached to you constantly. But you didn't, as I've talked to many of the other students so far, you didn't really grow up with the cell phone generation the way these kids are now, because there wasn't as much on the phone and it didn't have as much accessibility. There weren't as many good games. So you weren't as attached to that. You needed your actual gaming system at home. Now they're pretty much interchangeable as as good as they are. Like the iPhone can play just as good as games as the Xbox does, or whatever, console that they're playing now. Whatever the kids are doing now.
Yeah, the Nintendos.
Let's Super Mario.
The SNES.
That's it. The NES system.
Yeah. SNES stands for Super Nintendo Entertainment System, for all the kids who have no idea what SNES means. And that came out
boy, we're going
a long time ago.
So
So I mean, I just also want to say, like, being able to detach is incredibly difficult, especially just because school can be so intense.
Right, because you're like, if I don't do it, I'm gonna miss out. Something bad's gonna happen.
Yeah, and so I think, like, it's so difficult to do that. And if I were to give one piece of advice, if you have just a crap ton of homework, easy stuff first, knock out the easy stuff, and you have a bunch of checks off your checklist, and then you can get rid of the hard ones, after dinner or whatever, and then you're chilling. So, I mean, like, seriously,
plus it makes you feel like you've accomplished something by doing the easy stuff. It's like, all right, look, I've gotten this off my list and I've done something.
Exactly. And it clears your mind. Like, like if your mind is like a messy house, you ever walk into like a hoarder's messy house, and it's just like, oh my God, like it's everywhere. Like,
how do these people live like this?
Yeah, like there's like a McDonald's sandwich from 1993 in here somewhere, and like and somehow it still looks pristine.
Right. How come this doesn't look like it's 25 years old?
Like, it's stressful being in that place, and to have a lot of homework or a lot of stress for an exam, it's like, in your mind, it's like being in that place where all you can look around and see is the stuff going on. But if you clean up one corner of the house, that house looks a lot better, and like you feel a little bit of more calm. And that's kind of like doing a homework assignment. And then vice versa, cleaning up another part of the house, it's like getting another part of the house clean. So like,
and eventually the whole house will be clean once you've cleaned everything in the same way, same vein of doing your work. You start out with the easy stuff, work your way up, and then before you know it, it's all checked off the list.
Exactly.
That's a really good way to think about things. That's awesome.
And vice versa, you can do the opposite, and it will be terrible because your house is getting more messy, and you're getting more stressed.
And nothing gets done, and then you're just like, the heck with it, I'm not going to do anything.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, sorry, continue.
Oh, no, I was just going to say, so in your life, have there been a or many inspirational quotes that you have looked upon to kind of help you to keep moving forward and to get you inspired to basically be where you are today?
There are two that come to mind, and I think middle school, high school, college, especially, you are who you hang out with. I think there's some quote somewhere that says like the top 5 people who you hang out with define the most of your personality.
Right.
It's crazy to think about.
That is crazy.
But I think it's also harrowingly accurate.
It's totally true. It's like a bullseye. It's right there. Right.
Yeah. So one of the quotes for me, is that there are 3 kinds of people in the world. And the first kind of person in the world is someone who makes your life better and someone who brings you up. It could be good friends, parents, siblings, cousins, teammates. The second is the people who have a neutral effect on you. This is like your cashiers, your, you know,
Just your passersby in
waiters,
the world, people
waitresses.
who, yeah, they're
Right.
just there. Yeah, they're
Yeah.
not really playing a big anything on your life, but they're in your life at the moment, but they're not making it
Yeah.
good or bad. It's just there.
It's just there, right? And then there's a third group of people who make your life worse, people who bring you down. And, I think it's very important to avoid being in that with that third group, as much as you can. And it's important being with that first group as much as you can, where people are bringing you up and forcing you to be better. I mean, uh, I talked about my school with Ryan, and I was with all the A kids, and I was the AB kid. And, just seeing them work harder made me want to work harder. And even when I was in the academy, seeing the kids hit the ball so much cleaner and better with more spin made me want to hit the ball cleaner and better and more spin. And, and that's true if you're dealing with people who are just kind of lazing around and not doing much and not worried about the future. I mean,
But
like you see it.
I think
Yeah.
like breeds like. That
Yeah.
if you're that a doer kind of person, regardless of straight A or AB student, you're still
Hmm.
going to want to be around kids like that to
Oh,
motivate.
yeah.
And if you're that slacker and I don't want to do anything and I just want to mess around in class, those are the people that you're going to hang around with. But
Right.
once you find a taste for the positive and see how that works out for you, then that may help you to leave the negative. But in middle school, it's like, oh, well, these are the cool kids and I want to hang out
Right.
with them and I don't
Exactly.
want to be the not cool kid or the outsider. And
Hmm.
it's difficult. But as you get older, yeah, even as an adult, you kind of like don't want to be friends with those people who it's like they're constantly bringing you down. They're like Schleprock, if you remember him from the Flintstones. Like everything bad would always happen to Schleprock. Like just everything. Like his house would fall down, his like a dinosaur would run away. Like everything bad happened to him. And you don't want to have that in your life. I mean, it happens to us from time to time for sure. Nothing
Right.
good. No, things do not always happen good all the time, but things from time to time go poorly. But how do we make it through it? And by having a good set of friends. But it
Hmm.
just seems in middle school, kids want to hang out with the not so
Cool.
good kids, cool
Yeah.
kids. They
Funny
they want to
kids.
do that, and the problem is it's going to lead you down a road that's not going to be terribly successful. So, was there
Yeah.
another one aside from that you thought of?
Yeah. Yeah, there is. Also, by the way, you don't want to be with people who peaked in middle school. That's
Definitely not. No, that's
no.
not going to help you in your life.
That will not help you when you're past middle school and your
Right.
peak is
And they're
behind you.
stuck in middle school like,
Yeah.
remember when I scored
Yeah.
those 42 touchdowns in flag football in 8th grade? Yeah, dude, we're like
And
24 years old. It doesn't matter anymore.
you're like, what?
Right. Exactly.
Yeah. The other quote, I think, is about self-worth. And, for me, it took a little bit to realize for me, but I think it's important to realize that you're not worth, your worth is not determined based on, your status or the money you have or the crew you hang out with. That's not how you should determine your self-worth. I think your self-worth should be determined on, are you working towards the things that make you happy, and um, what impact do you leave on people, right? And I think for me, why I feel very satisfied with my life today is because I'm working on things that make me happy, and I'm able to just talk to people, and something innocuous like a comment or a compliment on, hey, I like your shoes, or, I'm like, hey, I love your red hair. It's so vibrant. It's awesome. Like
Yeah, you had
that.
mentioned that in the
Yeah.
beginning that when we
Mhm.
were just chatting and just that mindset again, the growth mindset of changing your belief system instead of being like, those are the ugliest blue jeans I've ever seen in my entire life. Why did you choose to wear them today?
Right.
Trying to find something nice about
Mhm.
someone and that could totally like you don't realize the
Mhm.
effect that you have on people and
Mhm.
how much what you say lends to how they feel about themselves or the day that they're having and that it just makes such a huge difference. And a lot of people don't
Right.
understand that. And especially like
Mhm.
with kids, because they don't realize, kids have feelings too, and I don't think all the adults necessarily realize that. And so,
Yeah.
the things you say, whether they're meant or not, or mean or not intended, they'll take it that way. So again,
Yeah.
what you say really has a huge impact on people. And again, it doesn't matter whether it's the cashier at Publix or if, you're running into a famous person. Like everyone, it has an effect on people, but
Yeah.
you have to take all that into consideration. It really makes a difference.
Exactly. And some people remember what you say for a long time, good or bad. So,
Yes.
you
Yes, you have
know,
a huge influence on a lot of people
mhm,
and even people you didn't even realize. Yeah,
right.
for sure.
Yeah.
Like we said
So,
earlier, I remember mean things that kids said to me in middle school, and that was like
yeah.
1,000 years ago, when dinosaurs roamed the earth.
Yeah. And I remember actually talked to my friend recently. I don't speak to very often, and um, I think we speak maybe like once or twice a year, but we're buds and we're pals. And I just kind of told her, I was like, hey, like I just want to let you know, like I think you're really awesome and like independent and witty and all this stuff. And she said, like, that was the nicest thing anyone's ever said to me, and I don't think I'll ever forget that. And
Aw, that's so
that
sweet. That is the
is
best feeling ever.
crazy. And, reverse that. Imagine if you were so mean to someone
Right.
that they would never forget that. I mean, like, how worthy are you if you're the one just bringing people down and you're in that kind of third category I talked about? Like, that's not great. Maybe you feel that about yourself for about 20 minutes, but
Yeah.
as you grow up and mature, you'll start to, realize that you did a not great thing, and vice versa. Like for me, I feel great. Like, I like making people
Yeah.
feel
It's
better
better to
about
it's
themselves.
better to
And
be positive than negative. Like you were just saying, when I first started tennis this year, it was the first time in 2 years, and on the first day, 4 kids came up to me, "Mr. Proper, this is the best day I've had in 2 years." And I was like, "Man, that's like the nicest thing anyone said to me in the last 2 years. Like, that is so nice." Like, and they weren't
Mhm.
saying it like I had done something wonderful. I'm just having tennis. It's just they get to do it. And
Exactly.
like you said, it
Mhm.
puts after having a long, stressful day of work, having to teach 5 classes, having to deal with all the life stuff I do. Then all of a
Right.
sudden to have these 4 kids out of nowhere just say it, like they weren't prompted, no one asked them, and they did it. And it just, like you said, it just makes you feel good.
Right. So, you know, giving that to other people, I mean, and growing yourself in the way you want to be growing. I mean, I think that's really the best way to determine your self worth. So
That's
that's
awesome.
yeah.
That's a really good thing to share with people. So, as I always end this podcast, I love to ask the kids because they all went to Don Estridge. Well, actually, not all of them. Some of my interviewees are from South Miami Middle School, but most of them are
Oh.
from Don Estridge. Um,
Mhm.
do you remember who Don Estridge was?
What's funny is I remember doing a whole project on Don Estridge
I
in
remember when they used to make the
yeah,
kids do that. I do
yeah.
remember that.
I can't remember if it was elementary school or if it was middle school
I think
because
it was sixth grade. I think it was in sixth grade.
yeah,
All the kids used to have to do a Don Estridge project.
yes, exactly. I think you're right. It's you're jogging the memory here. And I had like a whole note card session talking about his whole life. And then I saw the question, who was Don Estridge? And I was like, damn it. Like I did
Who
I
is
did a
that guy?
whole thing on, and
See,
all I can remember is
this is
computers.
why I need to ask Ryan who that is because without hint hint without him Ryan wouldn't have a job. Don
Yeah.
Estridge is the father of the personal computer,
Right.
and do you remember where it was invented?
Uh, University of Florida.
Hint hint. You went to school there.
Yeah, University of Florida. He went to
Think
UF.
nope. Think smaller.
Oh, wait. Was it at Don Estridge
Ding, ding,
Middle School?
ding. It was at
Wow.
Don Estridge. Don Estridge was a secret IBM facility back in the 50s and the 60s. And even people who lived in Boca had no idea that it was what it was. When the school opened, they were like, did they just build that school? I'm like, no, that school's been there forever. You just didn't know because there was a tree lined military trail. So, yeah, he is the father of the personal computer and invented it in that very building. And I don't know if you remember this little ditty as well, but we actually have Don Estridge's personal computer that was on his desk that he used. The family donated it to the school when they found out that we were going to name it Don Estridge.
Wow.
Yeah, it's
That
pretty
is
cool.
awesome. Yeah. He's, you know, to do stuff in computer now is crazy. And to lay that foundation for, I mean, he never would have known,
No,
like,
definitely not.
that there is now Shiba Inu coin because of his work,
Exactly. No, he would have never known. He would have never realized that there would have been Bitcoin and digital currency and all this stuff because he invented the personal computer. It's pretty amazing. It really is. Like, he has left his indelible mark. I could never get that out on society because of what he has done. It's incredible.
Yeah.
Well, no, basically, on that note, I'm so thankful that Nicholas Pita was able to spend some time with us today and tell us about his life experiences. And I really appreciate your time. And thank you for coming on to the How I Got Here podcast. I really appreciate it.
Thanks for having me. And thanks for everything. It's been great.
Thank you for listening to How I Got Here podcast with Mr. Proper. Music provided by Miss Mata. Thank you to Patty Fernandez for the introduction. Thank you to Seth Proper for logistics and behind-the-scenes production. Join us next time